Welcome today. I'm going to start off with a big shout out to our KEC presentation team. They are amazing and the most awesome volunteer team you could work with. They get things done. And I also today we're giving a special thanks to Clark Parsons. He's our guard at the door, and he has been guarding our door now for about a year, and we are so appreciative and that he will, generously donate his time and hang out. So we're happy to see so many here today, and so glad this is our first Eco Candidate Forum that we've had, and so this is new to us, but exciting, and of course we are also happy to see so many people who care about the environment in Kitsap County. I also want to make a special thanks to Martha Burke, because she has been strongly behind organizing this and contacting, and probably wouldn't have happened without her. So after our forum candidate, there'll be a break, a short break, and you can get more treats, and they're good, and coffee. And then we're going to have a special speaker afterwards. His name is Ed Friedel. He is an educator, a humanist, a holistic healer, and an artist. And so we're really excited to have him today, and I hope you will enjoy listening to him also. Tom is going to read our guiding principles.
Thank you, Aaron. And thank you all for being here. This is a great crowd. We appreciate your attendance. Kitsap Environmental Coalition's guiding principles. We acknowledge our presence on the ancestral lands of the Coast Salish people. We build community by forming honest, respectful relationships with all people affected by KEC's work. We use scientific data and inquiry methods for decision making. We support nature's well-being locally and more broadly within the Pacific Northwest ecosystem. We embrace inclusion and recognize we all bring different experiences, talents, perspectives, and strengths to KEC. Let's all keep Kitsap green.
Thank you, Tom. So now I'm going to introduce our moderator, Betsy Cooper, who is a KEC member as well as a League of Women Voters member. And Carol Larson, right here, will be our timekeeper. So thank you all. Thank you both for helping us out today.
All right, thank you, Marion. Hey,
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you, candidates, for being here. Welcome to this informational forum. Today is not a debate, but rather an opportunity to hear directly from the candidates on their positions and what is important to them. The topics today are about environment and environmental policy. And actually, I should comment, we've gotten some comments and some questions from some in the audience that were sort of broader and not specifically environmental focused. So those are good questions, but they're not for today's topic. But we can continue to collect questions for a bit of time. You have to write them on a card, and we have comment collectors that will bring them up, and if we have time, we will add them to the questions. We already have at least 10 questions that we've identified already, and some of them include some of the questions we've already heard from you. We will start by offering our candidates 1 minute to introduce themselves, and then we'll ask our questions. And each question will give them 1.5 minutes to answer. And Carol Larson, as was mentioned, she is sitting in front here, and she will have little signs for the candidates so you can see. You've got 30 seconds, stop. And since we can all get exuberant and some of these questions are complex, you might be wanting to go a little bit longer than a minute and a half, but what I will do is ask you to finish your sentence and then politely ask you to let us move on to the next candidate to answer. And what we'll do is we'll stagger the question. We're going to ask everybody, each one of the candidates, the same question, but we'll stagger them. So we'll start off with Tarra for the first question, and then Daria gets the next question. And so not everybody's stuck waiting to be the end or the beginning. And each candidate will also have 1 minute as a closing statement. This event is being recorded. It's not on Zoom, but we're being recorded, so this will be available on KEC's event page, and you can talk to the KEC folks if you'd like to see that recording and share it with others. And in respect for all around you, the audience members, please refrain from reactions to the candidates' answers, no cheers, no boos, or comments. Basically, this is an opportunity for us all to hear what they have to say. Let us, first of all, just show our appreciation for the fact that these folks have taken the time and energy to be candidates, and I just really appreciate the fact that that takes some time and effort. So thank you. And finally, one person is not on the podium, Kristen Lilligard. She was out of the country, so she was not able to attend today. Let's get going. So we'll start with Tarra, then we'll go down the line. Each one of you have a minute to tell us about yourself. Please, go ahead.
Well, thank you very much for everyone for taking time out of your day to be here. It's so important that you're engaged and educated on voting. I'm Tarra Simmons. I have proudly represented this district for 6 sessions now. I was elected in 2020. I grew up in this community. I went to Central Kitsap schools, and I raised my kids here. I'm a mom of 2 boys, and now I'm a new grandma for a 2-year-old little boy. I am also a former registered nurse. I spent a lot of my time working in healthcare. I'm now a civil rights attorney, working to help people who have experienced a criminal record. A lot of my clients today are immigrants who are facing deportation due to a conviction, something as minor as a DUI from 10 years ago. I, in Olympia, have been able to advance 21 bills that have been sponsored by me and signed into law on a variety of topics. I think most important for this crowd is probably a bill around derelict vessels, which is important to our community, but I will tell you more later. Thank you.
And everyone, please put the microphone right up to your mouth so that we can hear you well, okay? And if in the audience you can't hear, raise your hand, let us know, okay? Start.
Well, thank you all for being here. I'm Daria Ilgen, the son of an Iranian immigrant, a dad to 2 young kids, husband to a small business owner here in Kitsap, and a part-time farmer in North Kitsap. I studied political science, earned an international MBA, and spent nearly 20 years in business, strategy, and partnerships, including years working abroad where professionally I brought diverse people together, solved complex problems, and delivered first-of-its-kind results. Now I'm running to improve the quality of life for North Kitsap because the problems are only getting more complex and too many families are doing everything right, but the status quo is not working. After knocking about 1,000 doors here in Kitsap, I hear the same thing over and over again. People are struggling, but doing their part, building small businesses, raising families, but too often they are being pushed to the edge. The problem is not that people are not trying, it is that our systems are failing all at once. No more kicking the can down the road. We need change. Thank you.
Easy as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Greg Nance. I'm proud to be your state representative and to serve you on the House Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee. My story begins right here in Kitsap at a beach walk with a Squamish elder many years ago, where I learned that every one of us, no matter your age, can make a difference. In 6th grade, I got to raise summer chum salmon eggs in my classroom. The salmon now returning are 7th generation. Those lessons have shaped every decision since. We have a very, very beautiful environment and neighborhood here, but only if we continue fighting to maintain it. I have optimism around the challenges in front of us because on a sunny Sunday afternoon, we've got a packed house here at Village Green with neighbors who care. And that is exactly the formula that we need to take on the challenges facing Kitsap and facing our state. I really appreciate being here. I'm really eager to dig into your questions so you can make informed decisions this August and this November. Thank you.
Well, first, I'd like to thank you for inviting me and giving us an opportunity to talk to everybody here. My name is Lance Byrd, and obviously I'm challenging the position. I have some deep concerns about what's going on in our state, policies, and some of the votes that have been taken. You know, all they did that part. I'm like any other normal human being. I want clean air, I want clean water, I want our forests. I don't want to see our whole growth get destroyed. But again, there's a balance. There may be times where we do need resources from some of the existing forests that we do have. So I'm all about balance. Me personally, I've been in the IT industry for about 27 years. My job now is to work with people, bring people together, solve complex technical and people problems. Back into that legislature.
Okay, thank you. The best. And we have two buckets here, so you guys can Can I have your this is your blog? You get the chunk go to that. Sorry. That's true.
It really makes a difference if you hold the microphone like this, not like that. Okay. So the first question, and we'll start with Tarra, and then we'll move, Daria gets the next question, and we'll stagger the next. How would you ensure that state agencies charged with protecting environmental the environment, including Department of Ecology, Natural Resources and Fish and Wildlife, receive sufficient funding to support research for best available science?
Well, thank you for that question. And funding is a particularly difficult issue right now. If you all have been following the state budget and the rising costs of everything, labor, supplies, we have found ourselves every year facing budget cuts. And really it takes champions in there who know the players and know how to advocate for the things that our constituents care about the most in order to avoid any cuts from those programs. So, you know, we do need to address income inequality tax reform. Also, like, that's why, you know, we had to pass the millionaire's tax in order to start diversifying our revenue so we don't have to make cuts. But there are things that I know this group cares about, which is a lot of constituents around the 23rd care about our environmental protections. And we need to make sure that we have enough advocates who are going to say, no, we're not going to take away from the Climate Commitment Act funding to reinvest it in somewhere else. I know this last year we did do that, and I was very upset. I'm endorsed by the Washington Conservation Voters and have been working with them right now on a strategy to ensure that we are going to replenish the funding that we took from the from the Climate Commitment Act into the Working Families Tax Credit this last session. But we probably are going to have to make cuts in the coming session. When we go back in January, we're about $500 million short, but I will hold the line on environmental protections.
Thank you. All right.
I think that really highlights the emphasis of some of our challenges, right? Like, we're going into a third session where we're facing budget cuts, right? And right now, I think hot off the press is it's forecasted to be about $8 billion in the next session. The past 3 now, right? So we can talk about whatever amazing program we want, but if we can't get our financial house in order and we continue to kick down the can down the road, we're draining rainy day funds, we're using COVID dollars at one-time funding as perpetual funding. It is every single program we can talk about in this audience is going to be at risk. And every single endorsement interview, every single meeting that we go to, this is a hot topic because everybody feels the squeeze. But more importantly, it is a lot of families that also feel it within Kitsap. So as far as us being able to protect our environment, that is critical, right? That is what makes us love Kitsap. That's why we live here. But knowing that if we are able to be a lot more efficient with our dollars and figure out how to solve this, and by solving it, we are also building a moat so we are not reliant on the federal government, and all of a sudden we are going to be the ones to champion our own causes. And we're going to be the ones to be able to protect the things that we love the most versus feeling like they are always at risk. So being able to be financially responsible and accountable and making sure that the programs that we do love and hold dear are holding true and being able to be efficient is the critical key here.
By the way, if you ever want me to speak to questions, yeah.
Betsy, I appreciate the question. I'll try to answer it directly here. The first step for me is find inefficiencies and then fix them. One example of this, in Washington state law, we used to require a wildfire to be burning out of control before we could actually deploy and marshal the state fire service and local and regional fire authorities. That's really inefficient because by the time the fire is out of control, it is going to burn out of control. And we will lose millions of dollars in property damage, our neighbors' lives will be at risk, our air quality is at risk. We took action. I was proud to sponsor House Bill 1271, which changes that law, where now we can use predictive analysis and our fire authorities' expertise to predict where wildfire can break out. And then now every dollar we spend in wildfire prevention mitigation goes that much farther. We're not just trying to mobilize after a fire's out of control, we stop it before it gets there. The second element here is let's fund winning solutions. We know some things work and they work really well. One example of that is maintaining our forest land. We know that's good for our salmon, it's good for recreation, it's good for our communities. 680 acres of Kitsap Forest, we're going to be clear cut. I'm really proud our community stepped up. I was proud to sponsor the $773,000 funding package that helped to save those 680 acres with help of our forest fund, with help of KEC, and many neighbors who wrote into our office. Thank you, we got that done together.
I would like you to repeat the question, please.
People see this to results in Brunswick.
How would you ensure that the state agencies charged with protecting the environment, including the Department of Ecology, Natural Resources, and Fish and Wildlife, receive sufficient funding to support research for best available science?
So I think the first thing they're going to have to do is they're going to have to propose what is it that they actually want to do and what are the results that are expected for the money that they're about to receive. And since I'm not fully aware of what it is that they actually do, and not saying that they don't do anything that's not worthy, but that's where I'm going to go first and go, is the money that we're spending actually going to, is it worth looking into? Is it worth what the results that we think we're going to get? What are we going to learn with this money that we spend? And I'm going to apply that principle to every other government agency that we have as well. I want to know what you're doing, how much it's going to cost, and what do we expect in return for it.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, question 2, and Daria will start on this one. What are your priorities for managing our state public lands?
Very high level, knowing after engaging with a lot of Kitsap residents, knocking doors, and being able to work backwards from what I'm hearing versus kind of going in with intentions or assumptions or, a chip on my shoulder for something I'm very passionate about. We know that our environment and where we hold true here in Kitsap, it is just the lifeblood of our community. And public lands, we are going to be consistently under pressure for them and being able to just sustain them in the ways that we appreciate and love them to be. So I think it kind of still goes back to being able to have a strong stance on ensuring that financially we're solving, making sure that we are going to be focused on the programs that are going to be keeping them alive and sufficient. But then I think from a public land standpoint, we need to also come together to make sure that it is going to be a priority in the near future, but in the long future, because that land is going to be something that our kids continue to enjoy and inherit. And it is something that we are going to continue to love in perpetuity going forward. So, thank you.
Great.
three ideas here. The first is that want to expand the scope of protecting our forests, our farmlands, our water, and our wilderness. Too often I think we can be a little myopic in the legislature. We actually need holistic solutions. And I'll give you an example. Too often we don't think about our waterways and the critical importance they play to our natural environment. I was proud to sponsor House Bill 1634, the Bull Kelp Act, which recognizes bull kelp as our state marine forest. That's a really big deal for the quality of our water and the quality of our air. Kelp is about 40 times more effective at actually taking carbon out of the air than terrestrial forest. It's a super seaweed. Too often we don't think about kelp as part of our public lands. It should be. It's a key part of bringing back our endangered salmon, our endangered orca, and it's very, very capital efficient. It takes very little money to actually regenerate our kelps because when we invest the right way, they come back. The second element is using a tool called Trust Land Transfer. With Friends of Miller Bay, which is right here in the house, has a great project right here in our North Kitsap community. This would be a really, really big deal for us to preserve in perpetuity some really rich ecological lands. The third element, we've always got to think about the next generation. How do we mobilize young people to be part of the solution? I'm seeing here young people on our second row. We need to be part of the solution every step of the way because every challenge we're talking about, these will last generations ahead, and we need to be thinking about who we're going to hand the baton off to, get you all prepared to do so.
Thank you.
Public lands are, I believe, should be used for the benefit of the people of Washington State. That could mean logging for building schools or funding other programs. Doesn't mean we've got to tear out all of our forests. Doesn't mean we have to go after our old growth. There are grazing lands that need to be opened up. I think some of the restrictions that have been placed on farmers has been unreasonable. So that is certainly some I think that needs to be looked at. I can't give you any specifics about particular programs. I have to bet I'm not fully aware of all that, but I'm aware that there always needs to be a balance between the needs of humanity and the needs of protecting wildlife and nature.
Thank you. Sarah?
Thank you. First, we need to make sure that our land commissioner has the support that they need to be effective in land management of our state lands. So, making sure that they have all of the funding and support that they need to adequately do that. But also one thing, I really look to our tribal neighbors as the stewards of our land. And when I was in communication the other day with some Port Gamble Squallen tribal elders, they told me that the Fish and Wildlife Commission does not have a seat at the table for a tribal member. And I thought, wow, that is so horrible. And I will say, since I got to the legislature 5 years ago, there's been a big push to diversify our boards and commissions. And we do have, for example, a person who's been incarcerated on the Reentry Council, and we have stipends for people with lived experience to serve on boards and commissions. And the Fish and Wildlife Commission was created, many years ago, and it was probably before we thought about diversity, equity, and inclusion and those types of things. But the fact that they don't have a seat at the table for a tribal member is something that I am going to draft legislation about and bring it in the January session with the Port Gamble Squallen tribe, because when it comes to enforcement of the things that they rely on for their culture, we've already taken so much, and we are all worse off because of the ways that we have industrialized our region. And we need to make sure that their voices are centered in all of the decisions around land management and around fish and wildlife management.
Great.
Thank you. All right, next question, you'll start. What are your thoughts about balancing protecting critical environmental areas with property rights?
Yeah.
We have a host of challenges that we've got to balance here in Kitsap. We're fortunate to have really rich ecology in all directions, along with a lot of pristine shoreline. That means we've got to be thoughtful in how we approach that balance. When we come out of that balance, we really struggle as a community. One place where we're seeing that tension right now is around permitting, where we are actually aiming to build more strategic, affordable housing in some of the right places that honors our environment, honors our neighbors. By the same token, we need more energy to help us keep our homes cool in summer, keep our homes warm in the winter. we're unable to achieve either of those objectives. And the result of that is there's development pressures in places like Royal Valley. There are development pressures in places like Inatai. There are development pressures all across our beautiful forest land in North Kitsap. That's a challenge. And so we've really got to get down to basics here. And when we create a smarter framework to actually get permit reform done, all of a sudden we can actually build homes in strategically, with strategic density in urban cores, leaving more of our environment to be a pristine environment for recreation, for wildlife corridors and habitat. When that balance comes out of whack, we're seeing the pressures right here in Kitsap. We've got to keep working that. That's one place where the legislature has not been good enough. We've made it more obstacles, we've made it more difficult. That's got to change. We need to find that balance and then invest in that balance to get it right here in Kitsap and for all 8 million Washingtonians.
So I heard the question, it's about permitting and land use
Well,
versus.
let me just read.
What are your thoughts about balancing protecting critical environmental areas with property rights?
So I'm going to assume this is private property we're talking about. So assuming that's the case, if the state has decided that something on your private property is needs to be protected, then that is a taking. If you as a landowner want to build on your land, you should be able to build on your land. If there is something that is so critical that is going to destroy some kind of habitat or kill the fish or any of those other type of things, the state needs to step in and provide compensation for that. It is wrong to simply tell property owners that we're just going to take away your land or we're going to limit what you can do with your property without just compensation that goes with it.
Okay, thank you.
Sarah?
Yeah, this is a place where we've been able to make some progress over the last few years since I've been there, and that is efforts around like transient-oriented development and middle housing, making sure that we are incentivizing development because we do need more housing. We are about 250,000 units short across our state, and we are seeing people experiencing homelessness that didn't historically, seniors, people with disabilities, working moms living in their cars. And so we do need more housing, but it needs to be smart housing. It needs to be a different type of housing, workforce housing, ADUs, and development in condensed areas on public transit. And so we need to make sure that we keep the land that we do have, that we do need and enjoy, still there for future generations and for all of us. And one of the things that I have really fought for is for people to start looking at land conservation through a healthcare lens. As a former nurse, I know that when you go outside and you get into nature, it not only helps your actual healthcare and your physical health, but we have seen such an increase in behavioral health issues, and a lot of that's due to technology and screens and development. But if we maintain our places where people can go and recreate and encourage and help people who can't get there to get there by having urban parks as well, like in East Bremerton, the Illahee Preserve, something that I have gotten a few budget provisos for to make sure we keep that. But those things will help with mental health as well.
Sorry.
Thank you. I think it really just comes down to like balance and collaboration. Right? Like what we're doing right now, we've got a lot of regulations and laws and things that are going to be constricting a lot of this development or considerations. And from diving deep into this, it feels like we are only ever adding on to this. So then that leads to situations where we're almost like analysis paralysis. We can't be able to achieve some of the other needs that we have, housing included or recreation and so forth. That just puts a lot of pressure on the development and being able to get us from a community where, North Kitsap, keeping North Kitsap rural, we don't want change. But I think one thing that we can all agree on is that we do want to evolve in a way that is going to be able to make our community better, that is going to be able to provide for our future generations. So being able to just come in from a critical eye and saying what is working, what isn't, how can we be able to start to streamline this so the outcomes that we're looking for, there is going to be a balance between protecting our essential environmental critical areas plus enabling property rights and being able to continue to grow in a way that we are evolving, not necessarily changing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next question. Lance, this goes to you first. What role can the legislature play in addressing environmental issues such as fish barriers or stormwater management at that intersection junction between state highways and county roads?
It's just a matter of making it a priority. I think we all want fish, we all want healthy salmon runs, and we want clean water. And I know one of the products now, they're taking out the culverts over there so that the fish can go. And I think that's a great idea. I think it's a matter of just where do we spend our money, getting our budget, and getting just our budget under control. And then we can prioritize things like that. Well, I didn't say all that up.
And again, the question is about fish barriers, stormwater management at the junction, the jurisdictional intersection between state highways and county roads.
Yeah, so we have invested a lot of funding into removing the culverts, and hopefully we're learning from our past mistakes. And I, again, think that if we had more tribal leaders involved in the decisions before we actually made them, maybe we would do better in our transportation as well. Because, you know, our two tribes that are in this district have lost a lot from the development and the highways, everything that we have done here. And they have unique experience and unique insight that we need to be capitalizing and including them and having them centered in all of these conversations. And so I think with any project in transportation as well, we have so many boards and commissions and oversight bodies. And I believe that Native voices need to be at all of those tables when it comes to these issues, because they rely on the salmon flowing and making sure it's part of their culture, and they lose much more than just the salmon that we enjoy and eat when we lose the salmon run. So they should be involved in all this, and we should stop doing really transportation projects that nobody really wants, like the roundabout at High School Road on Bainbridge Island. And, you know, and yeah, we should have Native representation at everything.
Thank you. Daria?
I think it's, for a lot of this, it almost feels like we're always operating in a very reactive standpoint, right? Like, how is it that we can get to a more proactive mode? And again, like, I think I will continue to use the word collaboration, right? Like, how can we make it to where the tribes, where we do and we need to honor the treaties, and we are going to be able to do that in a way that we are enabling these threatened salmon. Right now they are threatened, and they are continuing to lose the populations because of our development. So how do we get it to a place where the development that we're doing, we are able to have a more broader perspective? We've got the right people at the table to be able to inform us of like the implications for X efforts, the opportunities, the considerations, and make it to where there isn't just this constant friction point either between the state and the county, or the tribes and the county, or you name it, where again, we are operating in a sense that we all want the same thing. We want a beautiful place to live. We want the future for our kids to be able to enjoy North Kitsap as it is. But we've got these pressures where we need to continue to evolve and be able to do it in a very thoughtful and methodical way, where we're not constantly operating in a reactive crisis standpoint. That is exactly what it feels like we are at a state level across the board. Name a crisis we don't have. Financially, education, transportation, healthcare. There isn't one. How do we change this?
Thank you. Great.
In addition to my work on agriculture and natural resources, I'm also honored to represent y'all on the House Transportation Committee. And we are actively wrestling with these very questions. I'll be blunt with y'all, we are billions of dollars over budget. We have a court order mandating more mitigation of fish passage. And so when you add these two things up of a court mandate plus billions of dollars that we don't have, unlike Congress can't just print new money, this is a really challenging dynamic. And this plays out locally. Quarter mile down the road is Whisper Creek. I was really proud to have a line item in our budget to finally get 104 realigned and to finally make a 30-year Keystone priority happen when we learned that Whisper Creek bared fish a century ago. And now this is likely under court order, and it will likely cost more than $100 million. I'm a proud conservationist. I'm also pretty frugal. And from my standpoint, this is not the best use of county or state dollars when for a tiny fraction of that $100 million spend, we could bring back far more Dungeness crab, we could bring back Olympia oysters, we could put in far more stormwater mitigation. So I think we need a little bit of a practical perspective in how we deal with the challenges in front of us. Because if we're not careful, each of these really quickly we're in the red and we can't invest in the critical infrastructure that we really need when we're following these down. So we need to align on a game plan and make sure that we're funding it and then actually go execute it.
Thank you. All right, next question. This is going to go to Tarra first. What do you see as your role to ensure that the state's budget provides sustainable funding for environmental responsibilities, including the county's responsibilities? How will you support providing funding or revenue to assure that the county can meet state-imposed environmental mandates?
Well, thank you for that question, and it goes back to progressive taxation, or what is the right structure for taxation, and why I voted on the millionaire tax was because in Washington State, not having that tool like 41 other states has, and 41 other states has an income tax, but we have not, and so we've had to increase in property taxes and sales tax, which lands disproportionately on poor and working class people. So getting our tax structure right is really important to that. But also, I just wanted to say yesterday, Rep. Nance and I were so honored to go to the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding between the United States Navy and the Suquamish tribe. And this goes back to, supporting our tribal leaders in everything, because they are bringing in, a lot of funding through this negotiation that happened in this historic signing yesterday to help with environmental mitigation right here in our Puget Sound, based on decades, centuries of harm by the United States government to this region. We need to have our military, and we need to have a place where they can preserve and maintain the ships, and that with the new class of ships coming in to be dry docked here, through 2 years of negotiation, Chair Forsman and his team were able to lead the negotiation and bring in a significant amount of funding that's going to help restore our Puget Sound and mitigate future environmental impacts. And that was a historical signing yesterday, so make sure you know about that.
Thank you. Daria,
If you wouldn't mind repeating the question.
What do you see as your role to ensure that the state budget provides sustainable funding for environmental responsibilities, including county responsibilities? How would you support providing funding or revenue to assure that the county can meet state-imposed environmental mandates?
Thank you. I think that the big one is just applying my background, coming from the business world. So in that sense, if we know that we are facing some of these financial challenges, well then how do we get more fiscal discipline here? Like, it's across the board, right? We are billions of dollars in deficit again, even with new revenue streams such as the millionaire's tax. It is not solving the problem, right? We will still be underwater even with that tax. So what does that mean? We have to get a lot more critical in how we are evaluating all the programs that we've done. And for example, for housing, right? There are over 200 housing programs for affordable housing, and there's over $1 billion allocated to it. Well, how in the world are we still in an affordable housing crisis, right? This isn't to say it's anybody's fault. It's just to say that at some point, we just have to take a more critical eye in being able to identify where are our dollars going, what programs are being effective, are they meeting the objectives that they were set out to be, and if not, that's okay. Let's just pivot and figure out how to make them a lot more efficient. The second one, related to the county directly, is unfunded mandates are crushing us. Right? Going to the county meeting recently, we are also at a county level under stress in our budget, where we are going to have to do a 1% levy on our entire county for property taxes. In addition to that, they are going to also have to cut staff. So what is this problem? The unfunded mandates are crushing us. So the state has the responsibility to make sure that the financial house is in order
Thank
to be
you.
able to not make that happen.
Great.
Thanks, Betsy. We have a first-in-the-nation program here in Washington that all of us should be proud of, the Climate Commitment Act. I knocked on a number of your doors 2 years ago, no on 2117 to defend the Climate Commitment Act. We've let our eye get off the ball a little bit here. We've diverted too much money from this account into projects that are not about green jobs of the future, that are not about conservation, and it's become a little bit of a slush fund during a budget gap and a budget deficit. That's got to change. We have a great model only if we use it the way it's intended. And so that's number one. We've actually got to do what we said we were going to do and keep our promises to our neighbors, number one. Number two, we need better federal partnership. And it actually predates the current occupant of the White House. We need to be honest about the challenges that we face here in Washington and the partnership that we need out of our federal partners. This includes things like investments in low emissions ferries. Our federal partners provide almost nothing for our ferries. Second, we have an upcoming Superfund site in Port Gamble Bay. This will cost $30 to $50 million. We do not have the financial capacity, just as a county or a state, to fund that. We need federal help. And a third is around our Hood Canal Bridge. Not only is it very inconvenient for many of us traveling through its snarls, Kingston, but it also is a massive fish killer. We're spending hundreds of millions of dollars to get more fish to feed sea lions at the passage underneath the bridge. We need to redevelop that from a national security perspective and an infrastructure perspective.
Thank you.
I do not believe we have a revenue problem. I believe we have a spending problem. And I'm not alone in that thinking. Even our former governor, Gregoire, mentioned that when she was in front of the Association of Businesses of Washington, or something like that. And I wholeheartedly agree. We need auditing. We need to see where the money that we are taking in is going and what direction do we want to move forward. And I'm going to, in my campaign, I'm basically going to say it's time for a different place to be in the legislature as well. One party control. This is what we get. We don't get auditing, or at least not to the extent that I think is adequate. So before we start talking about sucking more money out of the community, more taxes, more everything else, we need to really know where our money is that we are taking in now is going.
Okay, thank you. Next question, and Daria, you take this on first. Do you support the State Climate Commitment Act, and if so, how?
So,
At a high level, yes. I think the intentions of the Climate Commitment Act, it's one thing that sets us apart as Washingtonians, right? Like, we all agree that the environment is critical, right? It is for our future. And we are also seeing that, even with our efforts and as best intentioned as we are, it is still a collective action problem, right? Like, we can do everything we can, and we are going to continue to see greenhouse gases going up. We're going to continue to see erosions, within our shorelines and problems and rising, sea levels and so forth. So how can we get to a place where our good intentions are going to be starting to be proactive, because we know it's coming, and what are we going to do about it, right? Because sometimes it feels like we're going to just continue to put our head in the sand. And I'm not saying necessarily a lot of people in this audience, but collectively, to where our Climate Commitment Act, like the dollars that we're using from that, they are making it a challenge for people in everyday life right now, right? It is one thing that I've heard at the doors as far as like the cost of gas, right? The cost of gas being higher in Washington State versus other states, and we get a lot of notoriety around that. But at the same point, we do need investments to be able to make sure that we as Washingtonians are going to continue to honor the climate and be able to ensure that we're going to be resilient for ourselves as far as like global warming and opportunities for us to be able to have an impact in the climate crisis that is happening right now. Thank you.
great.
Yes, so I support the Climate Commitment Act, as I told y'all, but we also need to keep working at it. No legislation is perfect on its first crack, and there are a number of unintended consequences that we need to take seriously. One of which, we are becoming less competitive agriculturally due to increased fuel costs. Before our event started, I got to hang out with Jeremy here in the second row, who's a cattle farmer in Kitsap, doing great work. Cattle farmers around our state are actually going out of business. We're losing more than one family farm a day. This makes it a lot harder to feed hungry kids, hungry seniors, hungry people across our state. That's an unintended consequence. No one wants that to happen, yet it is happening. We need to be thoughtful how we approach that, how we fix that. And I've worked on amendments through our committee process to actually get at the heart of that, so we can actually give relief to farmers that help to feed us. On a bigger level though, we have really big challenges on the horizon. I told you about wildfire, how we're making progress there. We are still underfunded there. Climate Commitment Act helps us to mitigate some of the worst damages and contain those and do better to support neighbors in vulnerable areas. We also need to acknowledge that we need a lot more energy to be unlocked. And I'm not talking about corporate giveaways for data centers, the opposite. Instead of big tax breaks, we need to enlist our corporate partners as genuine investors in the future of a grid that they're heavily taking from, that they're heavily utilizing for their own business growth. They need to help us to modernize transmission lines, modernize battery technology. That's part of how we actually transition to a greener economy. That's what the Climate Commitment Act is all about, where we've got to stay the course and keep those investments on track.
Thank you.
No, I don't support it. I think it was a feel-good measure. It was, I mean, if you look at global warming, by the very name, it's a global issue. And the right entity in our country to deal with that is the federal government. Here in Washington, the Climate Commitment Act is sold as, we're doing something about it. It's a feel-good measure. It's just a tax on carbon. It doesn't make a dent in the larger scheme of things. And I know that doesn't sit well with many of you, and I understand some of you may have some really strong feelings about that, but it's the truth. You're not going to stop China, and you're not going to stop India. Just in the last 2 years, they built about 150 to 200 power plants, coal. That's equal to about 55,000 Chimicum-sized ferries. So what we're doing is basically nothing. If we're going to have these programs and we're going to fund them, let's not do it at the gas pump. Let's actually do it right and pull it and make it a priority within our regular budget. If we think it's that important, that's the way we need to do it. Not punish people at the pump and make our farmers and everybody else uncompetitive on something that is sold as a potential global solution when it's clearly not.
Thank you.
Yes, I was very happy to vote for the Climate Commitment Act. I'll tell you, it was my first session, and Governor Inslee called me. I was at home on Zoom and was personally pitching every legislator to vote for that. I was very happy to vote for that. I do also think that not everything is perfect, and there is tweaks that need to be made along the way. The reason why and I will say also, the gas prices are out of control right now for things beyond the state legislature's control. Right now it is because of the wars that are going on, the federal administration and things like that, so we can't forget about that. I would entertain a discussion about a gas tax holiday right now because of that, and see where we could provide that relief for working families. But the reasons I really support the Climate Commitment Act are for all of the projects that I get to go to ribbon cuttings for when I see the impacts in our local community. The other day I was at a ribbon cutting for St. Barnabas Church on Bainbridge Island, where they had solar panels installed because of the funding from the Climate Commitment Act. The wildfire mitigation, the forest management that's going to prevent wildfires, that is going to impact our health as well. When we have wildfires, it's not just the environment, it is also our health when we breathe in that smoke. I have a lot of stories about healthcare impacts of wildfires, but the money that is being spent from that, it's dedicated, and as long as we actually use it as intended and not rate it to give to working families tax credit, which I also support, but we need to keep it for what it's intended for.
Thank you. All right, the next question, and this will go to Greg first. What kind of regulation at the state level would you propose on the location and operation of data centers in Washington state?
Yeah, this is a topic many of us probably have followed, and there's a bunch of different state strategies right now. I think Washington, we can lead with our values on data centers. We're a place that we deeply value our environment. We value workers' rights, we value tribal sovereignty, we value opportunity for the next generations. There's an opportunity in that. Data centers, whether we build them in Washington or other places, they will sprout up in the United States or further afield. There's an advantage, I think, if we're thoughtful in how we approach this, with creating an architecture for responsible partnership with corporate partners that actually pay to invest in the future green energy infrastructure that we need to really unleash the best of Washington and to create jobs. But by the same token, we can't just be giving large corporate big tech a free ride. And too often, that's what it's looked like. And so that's been a little bit of the legislative strategy here and elsewhere. We've got to rebalance that. We just ended a tax credit for data center builders. I think that was the right decision. We need to be thoughtful as we go forward with how we can find the right balance and lead with our values to help create innovation, create jobs while honoring environmental responsibility and our responsibility to the next generation as well.
My big concern with data centers has to do with their power consumption. I think they're sucking down about 7 or 8% of the region's power. So I'm more concerned about where are we going to make up the gap. By 2030, we're expected to be about 9 gigawatts short. And an enormous amount of solar panels or wind, I do not believe is going to cut it. That is opportunistic generation of electricity. You're going to have to go to like gas power plants and that sort of thing until we can get to nuclear and find a way to do that. And if carbon's the issue for you, then we need to go nuclear. But there's a lot of permitting issues that's going to prevent us to get there first. And in the short term, we still have that gap, and we're just going to end up having to buy it from out of region, and they're going to basically burn coal to give it to us. So you're not really doing anything. But to directly answer the question, I'm going to leave it to the local communities. They know their communities best. Outside of the power and outside of the water issues, I believe that it's the communities themselves that know best what to do.
Thank you.
I love this question because I just sent Christine Rolfes 3 days ago or 2 days ago an article out of Skagit County, how they had put a moratorium on data centers for that county. So kind of encouraging Kitsap County to just say we're not going to have a data center here because that's what I care most about is my county. But I do think, the data centers, there's pros and cons, obviously. The pros are really for big businesses and corporations to have a storage place for their web sites and all of this, the cloud stuff. But if they're going to have those, then they need to provide the mitigation for the rest of us because I do see the electricity prices are going up and up, and the environmental impacts of the data centers. Also, there's cybersecurity risks too associated with that for all of us. And so we really should make sure that if we are going to have any in our state that, we have a couple in the east side, and one in Tacoma, I believe, but the corporations that are benefiting from this should have a role in the mitigation for the rest of us. And I think we should have more regulation. Definitely, I did support a bill that didn't make it through yet on data center regulation last session, but we did get the data center tax preference rollback done this last session. It was the last bill that we passed of the session.
For data consumption we're using, everybody with an iPhone, that means that we are naturally going to be reliant on data centers or something of that nature, right? So this is something that will happen. Now the question is, how do we work with them in a way that is going to provide a net benefit to the community? And one thing that I really like about KEC is this notion of net ecological gain, right? Well, what if we think about it in net electrical gain with data centers, right? And they're coming up with ways, even the big companies on their own, to be able to figure out how to be self-sufficient with the electricity there, right? And I've heard rumors of being able to have small nuclear reactors and blah, 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 and we're not going to go down the path of is that the right answer or not? But they're trying to solve this as well. So being able to come to them as a partner because they recognize this challenge, right? They don't want to have, these massive redundancies or gaps in their data because of electricity. How can we get it to where they're actually a partner with us at the table? And right now, again, from a cost of living standpoint, which is the number one thing that I'm hearing, across the county as well, Puget Sound Energy, right? We're raising rates up to 30% because of the consumption. right? So this is absolutely a problem, and we need to make sure that they are aware of it, but they're also taking accountability for it. And we're finding new legislative ways to be able to make sure that they are going to be a partner and bring some balance to it. That's over there.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask one of the questions we received from the audience, and this will go to Greg first. What is your opinion on actions the state should take to prevent wastewater treatment plants from polluting the Puget Sound?
There's a couple threads. So number one, this is a real issue. We've just got a Liberty Bay alert here a couple days ago. Friends in Seattle get these alerts all the time. We have aging infrastructure across our state. We need to take that seriously. The state needs to be a real partner in ensuring that we're reinvesting in aging infrastructure. Too often that doesn't happen. In fact, this last legislative session, our Public Works Bank account, which does very low interest loans, was rated to help fill a budget gap. I was deeply opposed to that because that's ultimately, public works are how we fund the future of our streets, our sewers, our stormwater, the things that all of us count on that we don't usually think much about until something's really gone wrong. And when we don't invest in that, a lot more goes wrong. So number one, we've got to recapitalize infrastructure. That's not happening at the rate it needs to happen. My hope is the feds can be a good partner, and then we as a state can refocus, get our eye back on the ball. Second, there is some negligence here, and there are actors that are trying to cut corners. They need to be held accountable. Ultimately, if you're polluting our waterways, if you're spoiling our air, there needs to be consequences. You shouldn't get ahead from a business perspective by doing so. When that happens, those actors need to be held accountable in both a civil and potentially in a criminal fashion, depending on the nature of that negligence. I think that's really important so that we lead with our values here in Kitsap and across Washington State.
Well, it looks like I came to learn as well as speak. To me, if we have a wastewater treatment plant, that's supposed to prevent that. So my first question would be, what's going on and why are they failing? So for me, it would be a lot of questions. Is it because, storms, just too much rain, too much water to handle? Well, what exactly is the problem would be where I would go with this. Obviously, yeah, it's an issue. And no, I don't have the answer to that, but it'd certainly be asking a lot of questions as to why are we polluting our waterways, because I want clean water too.
Okay, thank you. Tara?
Thank you. The issue keeps going back to how much revenue do we have and how are we spending the budget? Because as Rep. Nance pointed out, the Public Works Board is the account where our local jurisdictions, public utilities can go and get a no-interest loan or low-interest loan in order to update its infrastructure. And we've had several projects, including internet access for our region here in the 23rd through the Public Work PUD, the Public Utilities District. And because we keep rating every other account to fund our budget gaps, we don't have the funding for projects like this to update our wastewater management programs or infrastructure. And so it does go back to the budget. And I will say, a lot of people don't understand that, McCleary happened and we had to fully fund education, which we still don't have enough resources in education. Every program that we care about, essential services, is still saying they don't have enough. Yes, there are some wasteful things in our budget, but I have really tried to find like $10 million items and haven't been able to find $10 million items. I mean, the things that I find in the budget that are, wasteful, I think are less than $1 million. And so, yeah, we need to add them all up and get rid of that, but we're still gonna be under-resourced. And so we have to figure out the taxation of Washington State and the revenue.
So a few months ago, I got to volunteer at the Kitsap Water Festival, and they assigned me to the wastewater booth where we'd have kids coming from each school come in and just kind of learn about wastewater in itself, and then being able to go to different areas around the county and do these tests to see where contamination is coming from. And it's funny because talking to the employees there, they were sharing with me that, what just happened in Liberty Bay with sewage spill, like it is all too common. And then naturally asking, why is this? Well, it is actually because of aging infrastructure. right? So now we can go back to, some of the other topics that we've had in this conversation where we continue to kick the can down the road, and all of a sudden we're going to be in the midst of another crisis. How is this to where we're not just going to be able to recognize that what we're doing is just not working, and we have to prioritize our funding? Just like a question earlier about the environment and ecology. Well, how do we prioritize all this when there is not enough dollars? Right? Like, it is going to be a fight in a point where we have to start recognizing that how do we get more efficient? How do we make sure that what is about to happen with the infrastructure for our wastewater isn't going to become catastrophic, and then all of a sudden sewage is just pumping out day after day after day because we don't have enough money to solve it today. So it is becoming a crisis as a whole, but also why I support the Climate Commitment Act, because we can use these funds to be able to solve these problems, and we need the funding.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. I'm going to take another question from the audience. I'm going to make a bit of a change to it, but this is from a Kitsap farmer who has experienced higher regulation and costs. What policies can you support to protect rural environments and also make Washington agricultural competitive? So this one's, I'm sorry, Lance, you're on. Should I say it?
So what policies, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Say that.
What policies can you support to protect rural environments and also make Washington agriculture competitive?
Oh, boy, that's good. First thing comes to mind is I know that the offsets from our water resources, in other words, like there's a river or something, the offsets are 250 feet or something like that. I think that seems a bit excessive. I know that dairy farmers are having some issues with if you're too small if you have a certain amount of cows, you got to have a cement platform underneath to keep the runoff, even though for thousands of years we didn't have any issue with that to begin with. All I know is that I know that there's a lot of regulations that are affecting farmers right now that is not good. I can give you specifics on corn now, but I certainly they have my sympathies and certainly want to work in that direction to make sure that our small farms particularly survive.
Thank you. Tarra.
Well, I definitely would have to hear some more about the specific regulations and are they really necessary. But I do know that I could definitely get behind policies that would mandate state agencies, like our state hospitals, our state prisons, our school systems, these other things that are funded by state dollars to partner with eligible farms and get food from our farms. Right now they are feeding people in our state prisons, for example, really inhumane food, and I mean, wouldn't that be a win-win? I mean, it's something I would definitely explore is having partnerships with farmers here in the state that's providing the food. It would be a lot healthier for people, and maybe then also support our farms, our local farms, to stay in business. So it's just an idea that I'm thinking of, at least. But I would have to hear more about like the specific regulations that are impacting farms. I know that, like, for example, in the millionaire's tax, I supported an amendment that allowed farmers to have a $10 million sale of their farm, because I know that they work along many years in building up their farm, and then when they sell it, is it $10 million of revenue that year, but it could have been, that's their whole retirement, and so that they would be exempt from the millionaire's tax for that purpose.
Thank you. Daria.
I'm not sure who asked this question, but I can just express some gratitude to you, because this is such a challenging industry to be in, and it is a dying one, right? And it's almost because of the regulations we're putting on. And I think as far as somebody who also has a small farm where, on the weekends, I'm chasing around 3 alpacas and 2 pigs and my kids and chickens, and know a lot of the effort that it takes to even just manage that. And it is a heck of a lot of work, but even more importantly, it takes a lot of investment to be able to make a farm work. So when the regulations we're talking about, and we're talking about funding again, when we're looking at like B&O taxes that are going off your gross, and we know the capital expenses and investments that farmers are making into equipment, fertilizer, seeds, animals, whatever it may be, that net profit for them may be extremely small, but they are still getting taxed off the total revenue that they're going to have for this if you don't take into account the investments that they're having. So easy one for me, we look at tax credits for farmers because this is a critical industry for us as Washington that even makes it to where we're very unique, but it has the net benefits of being able to provide us the nourishing food that we are going to need today, tomorrow, and forever in the future. So I think tax credits are going to be a big one in considerations, especially how taxes are going to continue to go up.
Thank you.
Farmers expense.
Great. Yeah.
Three ideas here. First, we're going the wrong direction on a lot of regulations for family farms. We need to call time out. One recent example, we're trying to require small family farms where there might be just one farmer to do a bunch of greenhouse gas collection and tracking on their family farm, in addition to the 500 other chores they have. That can actually be done using modern technology. So we can still get the data we need, but no extra burden on this independent or family farmer. That to me seems like common sense. We get better data anyways. We help this farmer better succeed. Second, we do need to solve the financial issues here. Both revolving loan fund opportunities, it's harder and harder to get financing at all to build a farm, to expand a farm. That should change. I think there's a lot of promise in tax crediting, given this is a social good to support independent family farms. A third piece here is there is a ton of spoilage in Washington agriculture. We are a powerhouse, and we as Washingtonians should all be proud to be an agricultural powerhouse. Too much of what we actually harvest never makes it to market, never makes it to food pantries, never makes it to dinner plates. That's got to change. How do we change that? We've got to invest in our supply chains. I'm going to be running legislation, if I'm reelected, to build maritime prosperity zones, which will actually help more farmers get their goods onto cargo, onto freight, into semi-trucks, and into our ports, and onto our grocery shelves, and into our food banks. Because too many Washingtonians are going hungry is unconscionable. We can actually fix that problem and solve it, but we need a coherent strategy we have to deliver on.
Okay, thank you all. I think that is the last question. We are now going into your closing statement. So Tarra began the first time. So Daria, you get to be the first.
Sure.
Thank you.
So I think overall, I just really want to express some gratitude and thanks for everybody being here today. I think it's Sunday afternoon, and I know there are probably better places that you want to be, and especially on a beautiful day like this. But I mean, these topics are extremely important, right? And these are topics, and it is something that is so unique to North Kitsap. And we are, I mean, from this conversation as a whole, we just constantly see this tug of war that we're in. Like, how can we manage North Kitsap and enable it to stay the true character that it is, while still being able to accommodate, the obligations we have within the GMA and being able to build in the UGAs and so forth. But it is a matter of finding the balances here. And in my mind, I think it takes audiences like this, and nobody in here is going to agree on everything, but it takes the collaboration and the people with the expertise to be able to inform elected officials like us to be able to have the impact that we want. And I really appreciate the opportunity for being here today. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Great.
First off, thank you to Betsy for moderating our Kitsap Environmental Coalition team. This is a very substantive forum with some really tough questions, so really appreciate that. Ultimately, y'all help hold us accountable because we are your representatives. You deserve nothing less, and I appreciate y'all coming out, getting informed and inspired here. Because we've had a lot of challenges, and I will say, there's a lot we as Kitsap residents and neighbors can be proud of. We really lead the way. We have a Kingston community here that deeply cares. We have county commissioners that deeply care. You've got a state delegation that deeply cares, and I hope some of that comes across here. We've got to be crystal clear. There are big challenges on the horizon, no doubt about it. And I really feel like we've got the right stuff right here to actually make a lot of headway on those challenges. We're going to take it one step at a time with the right strategies, the right ideas, the right investments, and there's nothing we can't achieve when we work together. And it's an honor to be your representative, working together down in Olympia, pushing that ball forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Lance?
So the reason I got into this race is I'm deeply concerned about the direction of our state and what I perceive as an out-of-control budget. When you take into account our population and the rate of inflation, we should be somewhere around 56 billion, somewhere in that area. If you're looking at where Gregoire was at when she left office to where we are today, based on that, that's where we should be. So where is the other $24 billion that we need? I mean, if we had that, and I'm sure that they may come with all kinds of other different things, but at least we need to know where it's going. And I've looked, and I haven't found it. And if we want to do some of these other eco projects, which I'm fine with, I'm happy to save the air, save the fish, save all of it. I think we need to redirect some of our funds and get our priorities straight. And just asking for more and more money is not the right answer. It hurts everybody.
Thank you. Tarra?
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being here. It has been an honor to serve you in Olympia for the last 6 sessions. I want to say, first of all, if anybody in this audience has a specific idea of a specific line item in our budget that should be cut, please email me. I will do my due diligence and go look it up and see if it's still necessary, because I do want to find out where the this waste is or whatever before we impose new taxes. I do care about that. I want to say, thank you, because I've been able to help deliver for this community in the last 6 sessions. I've been able to pass 21 bills and bring over $100 million of investments right back here. Eglon Trust Land Transfer Program, the Eglon right here, the North Kitsap Heritage Park, the shoreline restoration at Port Gamble, or at Point Julia, so many different projects. And experience really matters. It takes time to learn this job, and it takes time to build relationships across the aisle and within your own caucus. 2 years ago, I became the Deputy Pro Tem Speaker, and I did that in order to build relationships across the aisle. And what resulted is that I was able to get funding in our budget at the end of the session for Howardson Place out here in Kingston. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, I have 2 more points for everyone. So first of all, thank you all for attending this forum. And please fill out your ballots and submit them by August 4th at 8 p.m. And the best way and the most secure way to do that is to drop them in ballot drop boxes. There's one right out there at the corner, and you will get a list of those in your ballot envelope. So that's the best way to do it. And otherwise, I want to thank the candidates for being here, and I think we give them a round of applause.